What's up, babes? It's Nicole, your host of Throttle Babes Podcast. The podcast where badass women empower badass women with just two wheels. Join me as I share stories of women riders around the globe. Sit back and enjoy an inside look at the female motorcycle lifestyle. Let's get into it! Hello, and welcome to Throttle Babes Podcast. My name is Nicole, and I am your host. I currently ride a 2003 Heritage Softail, and her name is Chicago, and she is absolutely gorgeous. I may be biased because she's mine, but I love her, and this is where my whole story starts with this bike. So, for those of you watching, you can see she is on my feature wall right behind me. There she is in all of her glory. Those of you listening, I recommend to check out my Instagram page and you can see photos of her. It's worth your time, I promise. She is a classy lady, and I have had the privilege of starting to get into shows and showing her. And one thing that I absolutely love about this bike is that it brings so many people in to start a conversation, to ask questions, and I love it. I love it. I love when women come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I want to ride, but I could never." Because that's not the story. You can. You can do anything. So, we'll get more into that, but that's just kind of a pre-intro, if you will, to who I am and my bike. I have always been around motorcycles my whole life for as long as I can remember. My dad is so passionate about them and riding and fixing them and doing everything on his own. And I am very, very spoiled and lucky because I have access to him all the time. I can, learn things about my bike through my dad, and that'll be something that I will treasure forever. My husband also rides. He rides a beautiful amber whiskey bike, and you can check that out on my Instagram page as well. And really, his story is a little different. He never really grew up around bikes at all. And I mean, he had dirt bikes, so that's kind of fair. That's a start. And so it wasn't until I think really he met me and my dad and my family that he was introduced to the whole bike culture, bike world. And one day I remember when my dad got his first Harley at the age, I think I want to say early 40s. And if you're listening, Dad, I'm sorry if I'm wrong. Sorry. But I believe it was early 40s. He got his first Harley, and that was, I just remember, the biggest deal ever. He got a Harley Davidson. And he was going to pick it up, and Austin, my husband, and I had just first started dating. And Austin said, "Well, I'll go with you." And I remember just shaking in my boots, thinking, "No freaking way. What is gonna happen? I I don't want you to go. What if you come back and you don't wanna be my boyfriend anymore? My dad scares you off." All of these crazy things in my head because, who else wouldn't think that? Anyways, the two of them, off they go with a trailer to pick up my dad's first Harley. And they came back, and Austin still wanted to date me, and he hung around. So I guess that's a really good sign because now we're married and we ride together, and that's our passion together is our bikes. But my dad introduced that passion, that hobby to my husband as well as me. And I've always just kind of felt that's really special. And the fact that we still have the opportunity today to learn and grow and ride with my dad is something that I will cherish forever. Um, growing up, I remember dad would take me and my sister to daycare, and my sister would go on the front of the tank because she's smaller and younger, and I would go behind him, and off we would go to daycare on the bike. We rode into the city, I want to say once, maybe twice. And if mom's listening, she'll laugh because she was not happy that dad took us on the highway on a tiny bike. I want to say it was a Yamaha of some sorts. And Brianna was on the front of the tank. Again, I was behind, and off we went into the city to see mom on this bike. She was not happy. But my mom never really got into riding, and she always supported my dad and let him ride and do his thing. And I think that's great because it allowed him to pass his passion and his hobby onto one of his kids. For now, we're still trying to work on the other one. And so he's passed that passion on to me. That's what I remember growing up with bikes. I was always remember growing up being taught that bikers are safe. If you're ever in danger, if you're ever in trouble, you look for the man in the leather vest or you look for the man with a bike or the woman, and they'll always help you. And I still believe that. Um, that's just something I love about the motorcycle world, the bike life, the bike community is everybody just loves everybody, and there's so much passion and so much shared joy that goes through. It's just a feeling like nothing else, honestly. And that's what has driven me to stay and ride. And the funny part is I never planned on getting into riding and I never planned on owning a motorcycle. My husband, on the other hand, had a plan for me and he started me off with a dirt bike because I used to ride a dirt bike when I was young. Nothing crazy, nothing serious, just something fun putting around the yard. And I crashed it and I never wanted to get on that bike again. I swore up and down I would never do it again. And fast forward all these years, my husband got me a dirt bike, and that was step one of his master plan to get me into riding. And so I practiced on the dirt bike, I got the clutch, I got it all, the feel for it, the feel, the balance, the whatever, all of that fun jazz. And then I went for my motorcycle license and I'm in Canada. And in the province that I'm in is a course that you have to take. And it was a 2-day course. And you basically ride around on these dirt bikes. The instructors teach you all of these different things and slow riding, braking, circle, group. It was a fantastic course. My instructors were amazing. And I felt so confident after walking away from that course. I got my grandpa's bike, which was a little 650 Suzuki, and her name is Shelly. I did not ride her this year, so I'm terribly sorry about that, Shelly. She sat in the garage, and at the end of the season, I rode around town just to get a tank of gas for her because it's important to make sure she's still getting movement. And I started on that for a year on that little 650. I loved it. I loved it so much. I rode with my dad, I rode with my husband, we did mini trips, we practiced. I went around town a million times. And then at the end of that season, I realized I need something a little bit bigger for the extent of riding that we're doing. We were doing a lot of highway and we wanted to plan a couple big trips, but I didn't feel comfortable on the 650 anymore because when you hit the highway, it was like a feather. I floating, and white knuckle grip when semis would go by. It was time for an upgrade. And so my husband always says, when you know what you want for a bike. And I'm going to backtrack and share this story. So my husband bought a bike without even having a license, which is so crazy, but he did. We were in a Harley store one day and he was looking around and there she was, the beautiful amber whiskey bike in the corner. And I've named her Honey. We call her Honey because it's his other honey. So there was Honey in the corner and he was just love struck, had to have it. I wanna say that day, if not, like, the next weekend, he walked out of that store with that bike. No license, no test ride, just sat on it, fell in love. And he's a big believer of when you know, you know. And I always tell people who are wanting to get into biking and they say, "I don't know what I want," and, "Oh, that's too big," and this and that, and, you know, look around, feel it out, sit on it. If you have somebody really close to you that you know, maybe they can help you pick or, in that process, they might have some better tips and tricks. And that'll be, I think, a theme of podcast is how did you get your bike? How did you know? And those types of things. So over this series, we're gonna learn a lot. Anyways, Austin bought this motorcycle with no license, no nothing, and he got it home. He got his license, he did it on the first try, and he rode for a whole season and then decided he wanted his wife to start riding. And I didn't quite know that I wanted to ride or I liked riding at that point. I loved being a passenger. Oh my god, I would fall asleep on the back of my dad's bike. I could go for hours. I would take trips with them. I loved being a passenger. I just like gawk around, look at the scenery. It was so amazing. So fast forward, I get my license. I have Shelly the 650. She's a little too small, and I'm kind of a girly girl. So I went on Google and I typed in pink Harley, purple Harley, tried to see what could pop up, and there popped up Chicago. Her name was not Chicago. I named her Chicago. And there she was. However, she was literally 52 hours away from where I was. And I showed Austin and I said, "Oh, look how cool this is. I love it, but it's just too far. I don't want to do it. That's too much." So I left it and I didn't think anything else of it. A week goes by. I can't stop thinking about this damn bike. I look at Austin and I say, "Listen, I think this is the bike. Like this is the one. This is the one that I want." I can't stop thinking about it. And without hesitation, he said, "All right, get in the truck. Let's go." And we took a massive, quick, very quick road trip. We went down through the states and back up to Canada, picked her up. I got this bike from the most amazing, amazing woman. Her and her boyfriend had built it. She had realized it was just a little bit too big for her. She sat too far back. She was shorter than me. Wasn't quite what she was hoping for. So she sold it. And she really didn't want to sell it, but she was incredible. She, let me sit on it. She let Austin take it for a ride. She was so encouraging. She showed me all the other bikes that she had and how she used to wear like full pink leathers with it. And she was just so amazing, and I will forever cherish being able to take her bike and love it and respect it and show it off like it deserves, because she never really got to do that, and I will forever be honored that this woman chose me, let me take this bike home. So here Austin and I are. It's I wanna say, like, March or April. Of course, we get to their place. It starts friggin' snowing, like, downpour, heavy, wet snow. We load that bike back up in that truck, and we pull away, and I just remember crying. I remember thinking, "What the fuck have I done? Like, what have I done? I can't believe I just bought this bike. Like, what if I don't like it? Like, what if" all of these things ran through my head, and I just remember being so flooded with all of these crazy emotions. It was a big purchase for me. I did it on my own. I just remember thinking, "Oh my god, what have I done?" And I think that's a universal feeling. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel that's a universal feeling. When you get your first bike, there is so many emotions. "Oh my god, I'm so excited. Oh my god, what have I done?" And it turns out it's the best freaking thing I've ever done for myself. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So we loaded this bike up. We took the big trip back home with her in the back. And I'm thinking, "Oh, what am I gonna name her?" I have all of these things running through my head and I can't think of anything. And all of a sudden this one part of our trip comes back to mind. Chicago. We had to drive through Chicago. And if anybody knows, Chicago traffic is a nightmare. That was the first time we'd ever done it. We were in a massive Denali truck. It was 5:30, between 5:30 6 a.m. So peak rush hour traffic on a Friday, I think it was. And it was an absolute nightmare. We literally watched like a four-car pileup happen in front of us. We just avoided it. And we made it through Chicago and we had to pull over. And my husband and I looked at each other and said, "What the fuck was that? What did we just drive through? What did we just do?" It was like I might have cried a little bit because it was just so insane, and we're not used to that. We're from, like, super, super small town in the prairies, and so I just remember thinking, "Holy shit, Chicago is wild." And I thought to myself, "Wait a minute. If we can get through Chicago with this bike, I can get through anything with this bike. And so her name was born, and that's how Chicago became Chicago. And at first, people are kinda, like, weird, but it suits her. It's kinda bossy, it's kinda sassy, you know, it's Chicago, and it really suits her. She's bossy, she's sassy, she tells me what she needs and when she needs it, and I've just formed a bond with this bike like nothing else. And I think that's really important when you're riding too, is forming that bond with your bike, having that bond, taking care of it, respecting it. Always respect your bike. Um, there's been a couple times where, I feel a little cocky, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm that bitch and I'm doing so good." She humbles me very quickly and reminds me, "No, you're not. I am. You listen to me and you respect me." And I just think it's incredible. And I hope that everyone who rides and everyone who wants to get into riding experiences that because it's so important. So that leads me into we took a massive bike trip this past summer and it was 2 weeks. And we did me, my dad, Austin, and a couple other friends. There's 2 others that went with us. And we jetted to Medicine Hat. We went down. We did Montana, Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and we ended in South Dakota at Sturgis. And we hung out there for a few days and then jetted up back home. So 2 weeks. We loaded up our bikes. This is my first big bike trip. I was shitting my pants. I was so nervous. I had never really ridden my bike for that long. Like, we were pushing 8 hours a day every day, and I was nervous. But I quickly, as soon as I hit the highway, I wanna say, like, hour 1, probably not even, all of those fears were gone. And it was the most incredible experience of my life. Just throwing a tent on the back of a bike, going for 2 weeks, exploring every national park on the way, riding my bike through every national park was incredible. And that's where this picture of Chicago on my office wall is in Zion National Park. It was amazing. I was that crazy girl who, like, pulled over everywhere to take a picture of her bike, and if there was a scenery opportunity, I'm taking it. It was incredible. And I just loved it. All of a sudden, this passion sparked, this love, this joy. It was all there, and I was hooked. I wasn't turning back, never will. I have incredible leaders in my life who support me, and I would love to do another episode, maybe even with my husband and with my dad. I know this is supposed to be women's, but for the first little bit, you'll get to hear me, you'll get to hear my husband, you'll get to hear my dad, their stories until I can get my first official guest. And that is in the works, so stay tuned. So yeah, that trip was incredible. It sparked a passion. That's where Throttle Babes was born. I was literally going down the highway in, I want to say, Colorado. We were just nope, Wyoming. I was going down the highway in Wyoming, listening to my tunes, hanging out. And for whatever reason, I just started thinking, how can I share this passion? How can I share this lifestyle with people who are in it and people who are curious about it? What can I do? And all of a sudden, in my head popped up podcast. And here we are. Throttle Babes podcast was born. I created it on my bike, in my head, in Wyoming. I remember pulling off to the gas station and, like, looking at my husband, I was like, "I thought of something. I created something in my head on that little stint." And I filled my bike up, I whipped my phone out, I wrote all the notes down that were in my head so that I could remember, and then we carried on, and it wasn't until winter hit in my area that we had to put the bikes away because we can't ride in the winter here, and you just get really sad and it sucks. So for anybody who can't ride in the winter, they'll know that it sucks and it's almost like a depression that you get that you can't ride, you can't do anything. So here we are. I thought it was a perfect opportunity to continue my passion through the winter months and I created Throttle Babes. And Throttle Babes is created with the hopes of inspiring women to ride and sharing stories of women who ride, how they got into it, and just their passion and their love. And I know a lot of people are curious about the lifestyle and they're curious about motorcycles. And a lot of people don't have someone in their life who is into it. So they kind of watch from the outside. And that's what I learned on this trip that we took this past summer was everywhere we went, I had women coming up to me and commenting on my bike, and I love that about Chicago. She's almost an art piece. She starts those conversations and she draws those people in, and I met the most incredible people during this 2-week period, and I'm forever grateful for everyone that I met, everything I got to see, and so I just had so many women saying, "Oh, I could never do that. I don't know how you do that," or "I'd love to do that. I just don't know where to start," or just, just curious. And for me, that sparked a passion of I want women to know and I want everybody to know that you can ride, you can do it. Push yourself out of that box, push yourself out of that comfort zone, and you'll get where you need to go. And the most amazing thing about the motorcycle world and the bike community is that if you want to learn, you can learn. There's someone, everyone will teach you. Anyone with a bike. If you're curious, we're going to suck you right up and teach you, show you our passion, share our hobby, because it's amazing. And we want everybody to feel free and we want everybody to feel empowered. And it's really, really cool. So I hope with this podcast that we can share stories, we can share passions, we can inspire people. And as always, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I would love to share and talk and teach whatever I can with you. And I hope that this first episode wasn't too rambly, and I hope that you enjoy it. And I am excited. So as always, stay rad, and I hope you badass women, badass people out there, enjoy the rest of your day and whatever you're doing. And I hope to see you back